Hey guys, Brent Hull Build Show, talking today about balustrades, exterior balustrades, and how to make them look right. All about scale and proportion. We're going to look at historic precedent and how not to do them today in the Build Show. All right, so balustrades, okay? Look at this house, okay? I think what they were trying to do here was they were trying to establish kind of a central focus to the house. And so they built on this front porch. I've been driving by this house for years. I know that they added this on. A number of things. One, look at the size of that balustrade on the top. Now, there are no doors out there. There's no walking out in there. And yet that balustrade looks like, first of all, it looks like a cage, right? Second of all, it's at least 36, if not 42 inches tall. So it's way too tall. And I'll talk to guys on the job site and they'll say, well, 42 is code, okay? 42 is not code, okay? And so the second thing is that if we look at this front porch, you don't require a front handrail on a porch unless you have a 18 or 24 inch drop down to the ground, okay? So this could have been handled much better. And I see this problem as I look at jobs, and I mean, looking at this house is a brand new house, and the balustrade gets so tall, it ends up creating kind of like a cage. And so no longer is this elegant balcony where you wanna look out and kind of peer over. Now it's a cage where you're like, prison trying to get out. So what is the rule? What's the detail on historic balustrades and how to get them right today? Let me show you a few tricks. If we look at historic precedent, okay, where did this come from? Okay, we look at this historic house in Charleston, we see a very low balustrade. Why is that, okay? Or we look at this house that we did in Fort Worth, you see this pedestal going around and this balustrade low. That's a house we built a few years ago. That balustrade I know is at about 32 inches, 30 inches, so it's low. Here's the deal, is that if you have a porch, okay, let's just say this is your house, here's your front porch. We've got a column there, right? And then we've got our balustrade up here, okay? Basically, the way the classical order works is you've got, a column, you've got your entablature that's supported by a column. It sits on a pedestal, and that pedestal establishes this balustrade height. Now, if you've looked at some of my other classical videos, you know that the pedestal height, because we talk about it as a chair rail in a room, is oftentimes by the canon too low. So sometimes in a 8-foot room, it's a 2-foot chair rail, right? Or you go to a 10-foot room, it's a 28-inch chair rail. It ends up going, well, people go, 36 is the standard. No, it's not, but there are rules, and it is about scale and proportion. So the first thing is that if we're gonna put a balustrade in, it needs to be low because that corresponds with the classical orders and the scale and proportion worked out by the Greeks and the Romans. We can trust those things because for thousands of years, okay, we've been building by these methods, creating beautiful buildings, and that scale and proportion that they worked out works, okay? Second of all, let's just say this is a 12-foot porch. We've got a 10-foot column, right? It's sitting on a, what would be about a 30-inch balustrade, and so it runs across here at 30 inches, let's just say. That isn't code, right? Well, there's a number of things. One, if you're trying to manage a job, and you'll see a number of new houses which are putting balustrades on the top floor when there's no windows or doors out onto that porch. So if there isn't a window or door out onto those porches, leave the balustrade as low as possible. Second thing is that if you have to follow code, okay, you're going to need to introduce a safety rail in there that keeps people from falling over because I'm not advocating putting it so low people trip and fall, right? I'm advocating it for a beauty perspective. And what happens is sometimes you'll see people will put let's say we do a handrail. We've got a pretty little balustrade. We got a foot rail, our deck is down here, and this is, let's just say 30 inches or 32 inches, okay? So if we've got a balustrade that tall, what I would do, because the outside's up here, people looking at it, is I would either introduce a little railing that sits on top of that, and so that if this is wood, this would be something that would be iron, this is something that would be black, something that would disappear, because we're talking about visual beauty here. We're not talking about function, which is code. Another thing people will do is, if because we're looking up here, there might be an iron rail that would go like this, okay? That would keep people from tipping over the top, but also be something that isn't going to be visual from here. And I'm talking, you know, if we have a handrail that's this size, right? That's pretty big, full scale, and our balustrades are down here, I might have a little rail that comes up, and that's kind of full scale, right? A little bar that comes across, so there might be just a hint of a little rail that goes across there. Here's the challenge, guys. Code is introduced for safety, okay? Code couldn't give a rat's butt about beauty, okay? And I want our houses to look beautiful. So I know some builders who might try to skirt code in this situation, or the 12-inch situation around fireplaces and moving things out so the fireplaces ended up looking funny. We've cast fireplace legs in plaster instead of making them in wood, so we can get around that 12-inch barrier, right? Because it's really hard to get a beautiful fireplace to look good when it's stuck, you know, 6 feet out from the outside of the firebox. So there are ways to creatively get around code. Beauty can be dangerous, right? Which is a good thing. This is our challenge. And so when we're talking about balustrades, coming up with a safety rail or some kind of invisible rail that provides the safety but doesn't look ugly is a great way to go. So here's about 3 or 4 rules in order to manage rails and balustrades on exteriors of buildings. 1, try to always get the beautiful right first. Do not be the guy who, well, code says, okay? Because code is oftentimes the lowest common denominator. Code is oftentimes the thing that says you have to do, at a bare minimum, you have to do this. Code is not concerned with beauty. So code is something that we need to manage and take care of for our clients, but it's also something that, in my opinion, in order to be a master builder, we come up with solutions for how to make it beautiful while still providing safety. The number of things I would say. First of all, on the first floor, if you can manage your deck so that it is only a step or 2, right, above the ground, so that you can stay less than 18 inches, okay, you don't need a balustrade, okay? And so therefore, if you're putting one in, it can be very low as it goes across here. If this is your porch, it can be very low and therefore conform with architectural, beauty and standards, right? 2, if you're going upstairs, if you have a balustrade on an upstairs thing and there's no door out there, again, go low, okay? I've seen too many houses where there's windows, there's no way you can even get out on the porch, and they still build a balustrade 36 or 42 inches high. It's ridiculous. 3, it's never 42, okay? Unless you're doing commercial buildings, code does not require 42. So don't put your balustrades on second floor porches where nothing's happening out there at 42. It makes your areas look crazy. You saw that one picture where it was the cage. If I carry this up at 42 and this opening is only, if the whole thing's, let's say the whole opening's 9 feet, I've almost cut this thing in half by building this balustrade so tall. So then all of a sudden my proportions on this porch ended up being crazy. The other thing is that, as you can see with this house with the stone balustrades, a typical stone balustrade, right, is a pretty little urn detail. There's like little turnings right here, goes down, right, something beautiful, and then there's a little pedestal at the bottom, okay? So there are historical kind of standards for how this thing looks that people recognize and end up being beautiful, right? What happens is this is typically 24 inches, and you've got to make it 42. All of a sudden, to make this thing pretty, it ends up getting really stretched. And so now it ends up looking goofy because there's all these details, and what we remember as a standard beautiful thing ends up getting just stretched and elongated, looking kind of goofy. So trying to use traditional methods but then applying them to code or kicking them up too far ends up making your stuff look goofy. And then 4, try to hide to get you to code. Go underneath that standard and then build up. Paint this little bar black, right? Try to hide it from the eye so that it's not visible, not seen, so that you can still provide safety for your customers, but also make it beautiful. And please don't be the guy that says, well, code says, okay? Now, I'm not being flippant. I'm not trying to say, code doesn't matter. Code does matter. Code's important. But realize that code is implemented by, fire safety people. Again, nothing wrong with that. All of these guys that are interested in the function of a building or the safety of a building don't care about beauty. Our challenge as builders is not to just say, here's the lowest common denominator, we're going to do this. All right, guys, so exterior balustrades. I know a lot of you are trying to build beautiful things, right? Create curb appeal, okay? Part of doing that, especially if you're building traditional houses, is to mimic the past, right? There's something that people recognize when they think of an old house, and if you're trying to build a traditional house, but you're messing up all the sizes of columns and heights of balustrades, your houses will look a little bit funny. So our challenge and goal as master builders is to build things that are beautiful, safe, organized, and recognizable that people are attracted to and drawn to. Getting your balustrades right is a big part of that. Trying to work with code, but also build something beautiful is the challenge, is the thing I'd throw down to you guys, and is really important. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Hull Millwork, Hull Homes. Sign up for the newsletter. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I'm Brent Hull. Thanks for watching.